Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Marketing Freaks podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about all things social media marketing in China, where the platforms are different, the culture's different, the buying habits are different. Basically, everything we know about marketing businesses in the West is completely and utterly different. So to talk us through that topic, we have guest Ashley Dudarenok. She has published 3 books on the topic, runs 2 businesses, helping other companies market themselves in China, basically really knows her stuff. So I hope you find this useful. If you do, please come and check us out on Spotify, give us a subscribe, a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. All those nice things are always appreciated. Hope you find this useful. All right, Ashley, how are you doing? Welcome to the podcast. Hope all is well.
Phenomenal to be here, John. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And you're dialing in from Hong Kong?
That's right. It's January, and yet we have plus 23 degrees, sunny, and COVID seems very far away when in reality it's not.
Well, I'm jealous of the weather, but I think Hong Kong is probably one of my favorite cities, so I can't wait to get back at some point. It's it's a very cool place.
It's an
So
absolutely amazing city.
yeah, fantastic. So we're going to be talking all things China marketing, digital marketing in China, which I think a lot of businesses outside of China get very confused about, or they just don't know where to start. So I think this will be a really interesting conversation. You really know your stuff about this, right? So published 3 books on the topic. You run 2 businesses helping other businesses market themselves in China, and you publish a huge amount of content on the topic. So I'd say you're probably definitely the right person to be talking to on this.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Happy to share.
Yeah, no, it should be good. So before we dive into that, I mean, how has business been for you in China and Hong Kong over the last 12 months? Because it's been crazy everywhere, but how has it been and what's the situation now?
Right. So in mainland China, obviously the outcome came early on. So the recovery has also happened earlier. A lot of businesses are basically performing at the top of their 2019 performance. So they're doing best ever.
Wow.
Exports are booming, right? I think China is exporting more than they ever have. I think the economy has just reached for the first time ever $1 trillion marks, and it's totally crazy. But as I love saying, is don't look just on the surface, because beyond the surface you will see how China is actually recovering, and there's a huge difference between north and south. And when it comes to people in the north, there are some anxieties when it comes to job security, when it comes to, what comes after COVID, how long will it take for, let's say, traveling to really resume, because China right now is also going through their spike in COVID cases, and they are local, they are much smaller than in the rest of the world. Nevertheless, that contributes to that lack of confidence from the consumers, from the industry, etc., etc. But in general, 2020, despite the outbreak, has been a good business year for many industries. I'm not even talking about digital. Digital everything is obviously very good, but also traditional industries, manufacturing, etc., etc. When it comes to Hong Kong, also the city's been, suffering for the past 2 years due to not only coronavirus, but also social unrest and the gradual decline in international, let's say, business travelers that are the heart and soul of the city. But nevertheless, I mean, this year financial markets are booming like crazy, like never before. So everybody is having a time of their life. Our property was down, or not even down, but slowing a little bit in the past, as said, 1 year or so. So right now it's picking up very healthy pace. So I would say it's still very optimistic in many ways. And obviously it's not as safe and secure when it comes to COVID prevention as it is in mainland China. But nevertheless, we are not on a strict lockdown, or we as businesses are not experiencing a lot of problems. Of course, those businesses catering to local market and local demographics I think they're struggling a lot more. And in fact, unemployment in Hong Kong has increased, et cetera, et cetera. So it's you really need to look at that recovery being uneven from city to city, from north to south, and of course from country to country. So that's the global reality of 2021.
Yeah, of course. And did e-commerce see a big boom? Because here, lockdown hit in March. Obviously, everyone's at home. E-commerce just went huge. Obviously,
Absolutely.
loads of sectors struggled, but was that a very similar story where you are as well?
Absolutely. E-commerce, when it comes to mainland China, I mean, China was already a lot more advanced when it comes to e-commerce in the past 3-4 years, right, compared to the rest of the world. But with this 2020, crisis, it just went China speed on steroids, even faster, even more, even bigger. So e-commerce, for example, was not really used that much by older generation. Right now, older people are purchasing everything from their daily necessities to fruits and fresh chicken meat or something like that, all from live streaming and e-commerce and group buying platforms. We also see acceleration of everything digital, from digital, obviously, education to digital medicine to digital service to manless delivery or manless service in the banks, in the parks. It's quite amazing. So this acceleration of digital technology and implementation of it, China is unparalleled. And I think this 2020 crisis and COVID outbreak only moved them closer or further into the future. So this, a lot of people are talking about this kind of disconnect, this deep polarization of the West and the the East being most prominently China, and, the West being most prominently the US. So I would say that, digitalization is the speed with which the adoption of the technology is happening. COVID-19 definitely propelled China a couple of months, if not years ahead.
Yeah, well, I think in a lot of cases it sped things up. So with e-commerce or like small businesses suddenly needing to get online and take advantage, in some ways it sped some aspects up, I think, which is really interesting.
Absolutely. And for small businesses, live streaming in China, like honestly, they were already a lot more advanced than many other, businesses around the world. But with this COVID outbreak right now, you can't see literally a noodle store on the street that doesn't do live streaming or live stream delivery. It's crazy.
Wow.
Like you're cooking noodles, and there is one queue that's queuing up for live pickup or eating in, and the other queue is basically there's a phone, or sometimes there's 3 or 4 phones live streaming for different platforms or different accounts on the same platform. And you see this person making noodles. One noodle goes to the real human being standing next to him. The other one goes to that delivery order from the guy who is doing live streaming. We see very simple people in lower tier cities sitting in the markets and selling literally homemade chili sauce, and they have live streaming. They are talking to people. People are saying great, placing the orders, completing the purchase, and saying, okay, I'm going to send my IE, so basically my my maid, to come and pick up the chili sauce. Just stay in the market. So all that is happening, and really we call it 地板经济. So really grassroots economy. Has been supported by, of course, technology and e-commerce and such tools as live streaming.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure we'll come on to all the kind of the social e-commerce side of things shortly. But how did you wind up becoming an expert in marketing in China? Like, what's the story there?
Well, I moved to China when I was 17 years old, and I studied first year Chinese, and then I studied business and economics. And it was back in 2006. And essentially, this was the most exciting time, I feel, in China, because we saw this adoption of smartphones, and internet was cheap and widely acceptable and accepted. And there were all those social media platforms back then. Facebook, Google was accessible in China, etc. And local alternatives were doing really cool things. They were not just taken and exactly the same platform and software and exactly the same look and feel and touch and function, but they were actually doing a lot of local innovation. And very early on, it started with things like Zhenzhen or Weibo. There was this great war of Weibo Weibo's. There were 5 or 6 different alternative platforms that were trying to capture this microblogging space. So I saw how China truly digitalized. For example, as a student in mainland, I was purchasing almost all my stationery and home appliances from Taobao. I didn't even think to go out to the market to buy some stuff. It was just the thing you do, not just because it's convenient, but also because it's very cheap. And as a student, you're saving money, right? So it was like I was having the time of my life. E-commerce and social media were being truly I would say established, and that's when China also started accelerating and truly adopting this digital lifestyle. So having seen that being established from scratch, I was very excited about it. I also was very I would say excited about the fact that when I got to China, very few people truly understood China. They thought I was crazy to move to that place. It wasn't as sexy or well understood or well kind of established as it is right now in the international eyes or arena, right? People thought that, only if you like dragons and noodles and kung fu, you would move to China. But there's literally no business reason or business case. So building bridges between the East and West was also something that I was interested in. And later on, when I decided to, relocate to Hong Kong and connect all these dots and essentially help international brands and help the Chinese consumers bridge those gaps, that's how it all came together beautifully. So I do have a Shenzhen, I do have a Hong Kong operation, and I think that this part of the world is truly the most exciting, especially when we're talking about e-commerce and digital marketing space, because the innovation is here, the speed is here, data is here, and of course consumers, right, the most wealthy and excited, and also consumers with highest demands and standards are here. So you as a marketer have a beautiful playground.
Sounds very exciting. And you mentioned joining the dots there. How much of your business is supporting international companies who have a need to market in China or want to get into the market versus helping local businesses get more out of digital marketing in China? What's the mix for you? Is it all international or?
I would say 80% international. So we work with international brands that are either already in China, and some of them have been in China for the past, 30, 40 years. So they already have their teams, they already have their operations, their online, offline, et cetera, et cetera. And we help them with social. We help them, really make sure that they're doing all the things right, because China is changing so fast. Something that you did half a year ago and it was good enough and it was brilliant, half a year later it's irrelevant. It's really China's speed. So you need to constantly stay connected and on top of these hot topics and the mood swings, right, of consumers as well. And then another part of them is obviously the ones that are just entering the China market. So they're rather new. So for them, China is like a Galapagos of unique animals and unique flora and fauna, and they're trying to understand, where are they? And they feel like Alice in Wonderland when everything feels right, but it's not really right. It doesn't work like how it works elsewhere in the world. And then 20% of the clients that we work with are local Chinese companies, big and small. And that one is, again, there's very different insights and information and help that they need, because they are very much connected with what's happening in China with the consumer. They have their huge teams to create content, to do media buying, to collect insights, etc. But where they need a lot of help is how to make sure that they are constantly raising the standard. So that they are local, they are connected, they are, China first, but at the same time, they are ready to bring that brand and build that brand up to the international standard, so that later on it can go international to Southeast Asia, or it is already in Southeast Asia, or to, let's say, Africa, Russian-speaking world, Latin America, and at one point, Europe and the United States.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And when you're working with international brands that are just trying to enter the market, what are the usual questions or problems or challenges that you need to educate them on? Like, is it more of a cultural understanding? Is it a lack of understanding in terms of what platforms to use? Like, broadly speaking, what's the biggest set of challenges that you have to deal with when working with a brand that's just trying to start on that journey?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is that people really don't understand how are they going to sell in China. They come with this romanticized idea that, I'm going to get on WeChat, and they come to you and say, oh, I want WeChat marketing. I'm going to sell on WeChat. And we say, so how are you going to sell? And they on WeChat, we're going to open a shop on WeChat. And then you tell them, how it actually works, that yes, you can sell some SKUs on WeChat, but this is not a proper, established, and integrated e-commerce platform, right? You need to invest a lot of money into bringing people onto this channel. And if you enter an e-commerce site or go through social e-commerce sites, such as, let's say, Pinduoduo, or you're going through, let's say, Tmall or JD, you can get you can get different demographics, different audience that comes specifically to buy, not comes to look at kitty cat pictures. So people very often, they don't even know what is TP, what is Taobao partner, right? That they need to have this digital distributor, online distributor, if they don't have a China team. Very often they think that they can go into China purely online, so they don't need any offline presence.
Right.
It can be true, absolutely, for a couple of months or for a year or two. But if you're serious about China, you still need to open pop-up stores. You still need to have a plan. Where are you going to be selling offline? You still need to have that plan in mind. Maybe it's not your immediate plan, but you need to have it. So I think the first and biggest issue is they really don't understand how are they going to sell. Very often they say, okay, let's do cross-border. And cross-border is great, but it also has, two sides, because yes, you can just safely ship from the UK that product that you have, and people are going to get it in China, but cross-border takes about 1 to 2 months, and people are hating it, and people are complaining, and you're going to have a horrible reputation online, literally difficult to remedy for years to come. So you need to understand all those. And I'm not saying that you need to come into China and open all e-commerce platforms and then be fully ready and then realize the market doesn't need your product. But you also need to have a more comprehensive plan rather than just, okay, let's open a WeChat store. So that's number one. Number two, they have unrealistic budget expectations, for sure. They come and say, okay, we have 100,000 US dollars, let's do China, right? And then you tell them that, okay, maybe one mini campaign will be 100,000 US dollars, but don't expect too much. So you need to understand what are the local prices, what is the local ROI, etc., etc. And very often, I love saying that, and this is absolutely true, look at what the best Chinese domestic companies are doing. For the first 6 to 18 months, they're losing money. And they're investing 70% of whatever they earn into marketing. They're establishing their brand. And you are going to make positive ROI with that customer on the second, best case, third or fourth purchase. So you also need to have that right mindset so that your expectations are in line with the local realities.
And do you find yourself having to not turn away business as such, but kind of say to people, look, you're not quite ready yet. You need to go back and think about this plan before we look at marketing or helping you do your marketing in China. You really need to kind of do a little bit more homework, think a bit bigger, think about the budget a bit more. Like, is that a common scenario for
Absolutely,
you?
that happens all the time. What
yeah.
we recommend people to do, first of all, we ask, do you have a China strategy? And my first question would be, is China your number one most important market? If the answer is no, I say you're not ready for China. So if you think that it's kind of good to have, China, oh, everybody's talking about China, the consumers are there. Right now it's COVID, let's just go and sell in China. This is not going to work because there's too much activation energy to do something that different. And there's too much money and there's too much stuff that your even top management needs to understand about that market before you're able to make intelligent decisions and moves in the market, right? So that activation energy means that it's not for everyone. No, it's not. But if you know that China is strategically your most important development market, you are committed to it, great. Now we're talking. Your second step is, do you have a China strategy? And it's kind of common sense, but 80% of companies, big and small, go into China without a China strategy. They have a vision of how they envision themselves being in China. So they go and say, okay, I want to be on Tmall, and then I want to be on WeChat and Weibo. That's enough for me. And then you say, why have you decided these are the right platforms? Do you know much about your consumers? And they say, yeah, I know my consumer profile from the UK. That's who they are. That's why they like me. That's great. But that's not what's going on in China.
Yeah.
What is your
Yeah.
angle? Like, what kind of angle are you going to be using on your e-commerce platforms to convince people that you are the right, provider of products and services? And they say, well, we have that whole global set, and this is our brand identity. Great, this is about you, but that's nothing to do with China and nothing to do with the local consumers. So, because China is such a big and complicated market, and there's so many different consumer groups, you will waste all your budget. Like, you will waste and literally throw it out of the door, all the money that you have, if you are not niche and targeted and you are investing strategically. So I always recommend invest those 8 weeks, create a China marketing strategy, spend those 30,000 or 50,000 US dollars to actually launch a consumer research, to actually identify that stuff. And then you have a plan, and then you just go and execute on it. So that is, I would say, another thing that
I get the impression you'd be quite straight up with people about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned platforms. We were talking offline, and you were saying that there's just hundreds of different platforms to choose from. And I think a lot of the initial questions that we hear people talking about is, because the platforms that everyone's familiar with here don't necessarily exist or translate into the market, it's, okay, what platforms are around and which ones should we think of looking at? And you said there's hundreds. So we can't go through each one, but briefly, like, what sort of choice exists and what should people be thinking about in terms of researching platforms on a social perspective?
Right. I would say the first thing that everybody needs to understand is that China operates through ecosystems, and that's very different from silos that we have in the rest of the world. So in the rest of the world, we have there's Facebook, and Facebook owns Instagram, and then there's Facebook Messenger, and then there's somebody like Amazon that's doing everything. When it comes to e-commerce, and then they're stealing ideas of small businesses and making cheaper products, and that's their business model, etc., etc. So China doesn't really work. And then there's PayPal, that does payment. So China works like an ecosystem. So for example, there is a company, ByteDance, and ByteDance, their biggest innovation is their AI algorithm. They are just a phenomenal search engine. They are a recommendation engine, and they are personalized, and they're cool, and they're new, and they're blah blah blah. And all of their apps, be it Xigua, or be it Douyin, or Western alternative as TikTok, or be it Jingzhi Toutiao, or all of them are running on this beautiful, they call it AI, but it's basically the machine learning kind of algorithm, right? And they launch their own shops. They launch their own payment system. They have this closed loop ecosystem. And as an ecosystem, for example, Tencent has another ecosystem. They have games, they have payments, they have super app, they have also friendly e-commerce platforms such as JD. Then we have Alibaba ecosystem. Alibaba owns 30% of share in Weibo, so e-commerce, not e-commerce, social media platform. They have their own payments, So these ecosystems, there are friendly and non-friendly ecosystems, and you need to, when you enter China, understand how do you position yourself within that ecosystem. Otherwise, if you just look at individual apps, it will be overwhelming. I've mentioned that there are about 60 unique social media platforms to China. When it comes to live streaming, there are over 100 live streaming apps. So these are social media and e-commerce apps and entertainment apps that have live streaming function, right? And plus, right now in China, there's a huge merger because of these ecosystems between what is social media, what is e-commerce, right? E-commerce platforms start developing their social media functionality. So they actually force a brand to build a community, to have a wall, to publish content. If you don't do it, Taobao or Tmall, they're going to penalize you They're going to give you less traffic. They're going to show you ad to less people. They're going to make sure that your products do not rank. So they force you to create content if you want to be successful within e-commerce ecosystem, right? And then there are, again, social media platforms, and all of them, from short video apps to live streaming to long format videos to whatever, they have their own shop function where you can buy. And then there's bloggers that are located on both, right? And essentially, right now we have this merger between the two, so that becomes social e-commerce. So going into China, you need to know clearly Tencent ecosystem. WeChat is the biggest one. You really need to do something there, especially CRM, especially social CRM, right? It is really not the tool for marketers because marketing there is often very expensive. It's really difficult if you don't have especially offline presence, because very often if you have a package or packaging or you have an offline shop, that's where you can collect, a lot of new eyeballs and a lot new followers. So depending on the strength of your brand, it can be easy or more difficult. And then you of course need to understand the Alibaba ecosystem, and you cannot right now in 2021 be on Ali and not do Weitao. So Weitao is a local, its own kind of social media platform where you are talking about your brand, you're educating the consumer, and at the same time you are sharing offers linked to your store. You cannot avoid but be a part of ByteDance ecosystem very, very often. Douyin is absolutely amazing. Toutiao is great. In terms of Douyin, it works for some industries better, for others worse. But what you do on Douyin is essentially you hire bloggers, or you hire a person that becomes your own in-house blogger, and you just push out a lot of content. You can look at some independents as well, like Red, for example, which is Xiaohongshu. They are also great. Zhihu is another great platform for like a Quora with long format messages, especially for B2B, or it's great for products that need to be explained in detail. So take your time to understand ecosystems, and then choose what is the right metrics for you. You don't need to be on 100 platforms. You don't even need to be on 5. You probably need 2 or 3, and one of them needs to be a key and major, and that's where you need to really kill it.
Yeah, I'm such a big fan of just do 1 or 2 things really, really well. Find out the best fit for you. Nail that. And it sounds like it's the same thing, but there's just so much research involved in finding out what that should be. And you don't, like you're saying, you don't just do China.
No, you don't do China. And also, it can be a great platform. Like, for instance, Red is doing really well in last year or this year, or Bilibili, they are doing phenomenal things. Also last year, their advertising revenues are up. I mean, the company is flourishing, the new functions, etc. But it depends on your audience. Is your audience there? If you're not targeting younger generation that really watches those 30-minute vlogs and are really into ACG, anime, gaming, etc., then you don't need to be on Bilibili, of course, right? So again, in the West, we have this kind of big Facebook and Instagram, and it doesn't matter whether you are a corporate lawyer or a real estate agent or you're making cupcakes. Everybody needs to be on Instagram, and I agree. You need to be on Instagram because that's the way our ecosystem is set up. But in China, it's different. You can be on Keep, but you don't need to be on Red. You can be on Bilibili. Maybe you don't even need WeChat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of strategies and tactics, when we met 3 years ago, 4 years, something like that, it feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? You were doing a presentation on KOLs and I guess like influencer marketing. How big a thing is that? And is that still a big part of your strategies and tactics? Obviously, depending on the platform, depending on the context, but is that something you still focus on for brands, particularly when launching?
Absolutely. First of all, it's very Asian. There's a huge fans economy factor that we in the West just can't really connect that well. The fact that you can totally support this group or band or this particular celebrity to the point when doesn't matter what this person is promoting, you will buy it even if you don't need it. I mean, that really fanatic followship, I think it's very common, let's say in Japan and Korea and in China as well. So that's very culturally somehow acceptable. And that happens a lot in women. So it's ladies primarily, and they are following lady bands, they are following gentleman bands, younger and older. That's also something very different, because in the West, usually if you follow somebody, for example, I do not know, Enrique Iglesias, or you like Justin Bieber or somebody, then the girl would usually think and be like, you feel like he could be your boyfriend, and like, oh my God, he's a great musician, whatever. So you appreciate their music, but at the same time, a bit of that. So in China, completely different. Again, there are a lot of people that actually look at them that, like, I am the big sister, and they are like the small little brothers.
Right. Okay.
So it's a completely different mindset. And you, as big sister, your job is to make sure that your little brothers are successful. So if they say, buy that book, you better buy 5 copies of that book and gift it to all your relatives who don't even know or like them, but it is your job to support them. So
again, there's a cultural difference there, isn't there? That if you're not thinking of that, then you've got completely the wrong messaging and strategy.
Absolutely. And very often I see Western brands coming, to China, and they have some K-pop celebrities, or they have some Western celebrities, or somebody, for example, an athlete from the West that they think is very big and very popular. Oh my God, there's this basketball player, and we're going to use him globally. And then in China, he's going to come and basically kill it.
Yeah.
And you just look at it and you say, no, first, this person doesn't fit the audience that you're trying to reach. And you sometimes your heart just wants to scream and be like, no, don't do it. We recently had an interesting case when a client, a very big brand, they came up and said, okay, we're doing global collaboration with this big game, international, basically virtual game. And we are going to be dressing up some of these basically IPs, right, in the game, and we're going to do blah, blah, blah things. And then you look at what's happening in China, and basically this is the game for old people, for people over 30, and they are targeting millennials, and you see that disconnect. So in the rest of the world, younger people are still getting on this gaming platform and they're still excited about. In China, it's basically last century. So that's what I'm saying. Obviously, yes, it's great to bring your ideas, and it's great to align some global marketing and messages. Of course, it is very important. But at the same time, when it comes to influencer marketing, you need to understand that there is this crazy fans economy that is very difficult for people outside of China or Asia to understand. Number 2, in China, word of mouth is extremely strong and powerful. So for word of mouth, it's right now extended onto your, virtual influences as well. So I trust you as if you are my friend. I trust you as if we know each other. Number 3, there are different types of influencers. There are big celebrities. There's bloggers that really work on their content and make life of their audiences easier by sharing their expertise. There are Wang Hongs that are just like Kim Kardashians, sharing their life and bring no real, apart from entertainment, probably value, right? There are we media, professional media that operates, and all of them are just called KOLs or bloggers. And besides that, right now, virtual influencers are extremely big in China. Those that can live stream 24 hours, the ones that you can involve for promotion, for branding, for audience exchange, etc. So you cannot do China well without an influencer, but you need to have an influencer strategy, of course, because there's so many of them. And and make sure that, again, your China team has a say in it, because your perception can be very outdated.
Yeah, no, that makes a huge amount of sense. I think basically it sounds to me like everything you're saying is all about that. You mentioned it earlier, like before you do anything, spend the money or spend the time to get a decent localized strategy. Otherwise, you just get totally lost.
And not only lost, but you're going to waste a lot of resources, a lot of time. And again, let me highlight that China is expensive. China is expensive. You want to launch a campaign, let's say you're entering Tmall, right? You want to open just a store, just an online store. You're looking at investing anything from 50,000 to 100,000 US dollars just to open a store. Just to open a store. And then as a brand, you will have to commit to some marketing spend. So Tmall is not going to take you unless you will show them a sound plan of how are you going to make sure that Chinese consumers are going to know you. And, so you will have to invest into advertising, into search ads, into banner ads. You need to participate in some, obviously, 11/11 or whatever, and there are brand days, super brand day just for you or for your industry. So all of that is going to take a few million RMB per time, right? And of course, if you're a small brand, maybe you can get away with, I do not know, 100, 200, 300 US dollars a year on e-commerce platform promotion. You can get away. The bigger you are, the more you will have to spend. Talking about bloggers, same thing. There can be small bloggers that charge, okay, 500 US dollars per small post or whatever, but really impactful bloggers charge crazy amounts, much higher than their Western alternatives. On Weibo, a celebrity can cost up to 120, 150,000 US dollars per post, post. And I'm not saying that you need to use them, but I'm saying that this is market rate. Or for example, live streaming. Everybody's talking about, Via, Austin Lee, all these guys are live streaming and they're selling a lot. Yes, they are selling a lot, but they are charging also between 50 to 100,000 US dollars for 5 minutes talking about your product. Apart from all that, they are taking 30 to 45% commission on whatever price you're giving, and your price needs to be the lowest price on the internet. So are you really making positive ROI? Very likely no. Very likely no, but you're doing it for a different reason, right? And you need to get in the game, and then you go to different types of live streams, more like expert live streams, where you pay very little fee to invite an expert to a studio, and that's where you can sell for volume and etc. So make sure that you have that strategy, because otherwise your money are going to be gone like that with very little impact. And in China, it's definitely, China can burn your money very, very quickly.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing, all these differences that I don't know if anyone or people truly appreciate quite how much, or like how different it is from every aspect. So look, I could just keep talking to you about this for hours, but that was absolutely fascinating, and thank you so much. And where can people find out a little bit more about you and what you do, and see a bit more of your content? Where should people go?
Well, for all China-related insights when it comes to marketing, consumers, the new retail, I would be very happy to get people on my LinkedIn, because I share daily insights about China there. So my LinkedIn is just my name, Ashley Dudarenok. You can find me very easily. When it comes to learning more about my businesses, one is called Chouzan, and the other one is called Eloise. So once you go to LinkedIn, it's right there. It's very easy to find as well. And if you Google my name, Ashley Dudarenok, you can also land on my personal website, where basically it introduces who I am and about the two businesses that I'm running. So guys, do get connected and send me your questions. Would be very happy to channel them through to my team.
Fantastic. And look, thank you so much for joining, and hope everyone enjoyed this. I'm sure everyone found this very insightful.
Thank you so much, John.